Welcome back, and this is our special coverage of Budget 2021, and we've been trying to sort of read between the lines and understand what this is going to mean, this budget is going to mean for the economy going forward. And joining me at this point in time is Dr Rathin Roy, Managing Director, ODI, who's with me here from London, in fact. Thank you so much, Dr Roy, for joining us. Your first, before we get to the specifics, and there are a lot of specifics really to discuss here, but your overall, thoughts as far as the budget is concerned. I was going through some of your tweets where you've talked about how transparent this time the budget has been in terms of the numbers, the fiscal numbers as well.
Yes, we have to be thankful for small mercies. For the past 2 or 3 years, there has been a lot of fudging going on in the budget. And numbers have not been expressed properly. There's been off-budget borrowing, etc. I think the FM tried to correct some of that last year. And I'm very happy to see that this year the administration has done something which really worried me. You see, last year, she didn't even talk about the macro fiscal numbers in her budget speech. And your audience should understand this is very important because the budget speech is the document of record on which a government can be held accountable by parliament and by history. So when you don't mention things in the budget speech, you're not accountable. This year, she has laid out the macro fiscal position in the budget speech. She has also acknowledged that there is off-budget borrowing and that she is curtailing it. And I think both these things are very good.
Okay. And what sort of stood out for you in this budget? Of course, the one thing I think for everyone that stood out was the healthcare expenditure. I mean, this is something that for several years, the experts, the health industry has been asking for in increasing the percentage of health spending. And that sort of come in this time round. But of course, the important part is going to be as to how the headline number sounds great, but where and how it's going to be spent in terms of overhauling our entire health infrastructure is going to be key.
Well, in this case, I prefer to go by track record. We have had a pandemic now for close on a year. And if you look at the total expenditure increase in the year that's just passed, the increase in expenditure is about 4 lakh crores in the revised estimates for 2021 as opposed to the budget estimates. Not much of that has gone into healthcare. So next year, what you're doing is you're making a promise. And I have to ask, what were you doing all of this year with the increased money? You have raised the fiscal deficit, fine. You have increased expenditure, fine. But I don't see any evidence there that there has been any substantial increase in healthcare expenditure this year. Now, next year you're saying you're going to increase it. She did say something, the FM, in her speech about putting in extra money into wellness centers and creating new hospitals, etc. But that is all talk, which is, I hope, will walk. But the point is that in this year's budget, we've had a pandemic for a year now. I haven't seen the walk.
Yes,
so I'm legitimately going to worry about the talk about next year.
Yes, absolutely. And that really is, a key point because very often when it comes to the implementation part of it, there seems to be a slightly slip over there. But just, talking about some of the numbers that you were also right now referring to, just a short while back, we spoke to Mr. Chidambaram, who said that the disinvestment target of 1.75 lakh crore, the tax revenue increase of 15% that the finance minister sort of laid out, he seemed to suggest that all of that is not going to happen. What is your own view?
Mr. Chidambaram is wrong about the tax revenue increase. I think that the extreme moderation has been exercised in projecting increases in tax revenue next year. Really, if you look at the number, they're just trying to recover to where we would have been if GDP had not fallen. So suppose GDP had not fallen and not risen. Then we would expect a certain amount of tax to be collected. And next year's budget basically is predicated upon GDP going back to what it would have been if it had not fallen in the year 2021. And on that basis, they have made a tax projection, which is quite reasonable. I have no quarrel with the tax projection.
Okay.
Especially because this government has consistently failed for 4 years to collect the taxes it says to be collected. So prudence there has been exercised. Where I do agree with Mr. Chidambaram is that the disinvestment target is ambitious. In a situation which you actually know, you're sitting in Bombay where equity markets are booming, capital markets are booming. People have described the recovery this year, such recovery as we have had, as profit-led. You could not disinvest. Your disinvestment plans collapsed. I don't think there's execution capability in the government of India, so I'm very worried about that disinvestment number.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head because even today, in reaction to the budget, of course, the stock markets were booming. But even other than that, we have seen the markets touching, new highs, and this would have been perhaps a great opportunity for the government to at least do some strategic disinvestments as well. Yes, please.
If I may put it quickly, since you're sitting in Bombay,
yes,
Mr. Ambani managed to raise money from asset sales. He became debt-free. The government of India could not.
Yes, fair enough. That is a question perhaps that we must pose to them. But they have talked about, going ahead and privatizing two banks, one general insurance company, and of course the IPO of LIC. And all of these seem like extremely bold moves, but there could be a lot of challenges in each of these moves going forward in terms of, trying to get that disinvestment going with all of this.
Well, if you again go by track record, I like track record. India is a country where too many people talk in the future continuous tense. Let's talk about in the past and present tense. The FM announced that LIC would be privatized or the process would begin in her last budget. They only appointed the transactions advisor for that in November. That is the extremely limited state capacity that exists in the Ministry of Finance to carry out complex asset management operations. I mean, I'm not giving Mr. Chidambaram any credit on this. It's not as if the previous government had great capability and it has collapsed. Now, the capability has always been low. And therefore, when you then set out an even more ambitious financial disinvestment program, if it's taken you 7-9 months to just appoint a transactions advisor for LIC, I begin to doubt whether you'll be able to complete and finish on time. And that has implications because then again, you're going to budget to get some disinvestment money in. Again, you're going to fall short. Again, you're going to have to cut expenditures in a year where you're looking for an active fiscal policy. So yes, the disinvestment reliance is very unfortunate. I notice, however, I must add, the government has also laid emphasis this year on asset monetization.
Yes. Which
is a sort of, I can't disinvest big ticket stuff, so let me try and monetize some assets, like, power grid and all that sort of thing. Chalo, if they can at least do that. But the bottom line is this, unless they're able to rapidly create quality capacity in the Ministry of Finance and rely on the best minds in this country, the best financial minds in Bombay, take the private sector into confidence and work with them to craft a strategic disinvestment policy, is not going to happen from North Block.
Yes.
It's not going to happen
and even, Dr. Roy, if I can interrupt you, the asset monetization plan, there's nothing concrete that we heard as well. So we really have to see what and how that happens. But, we're running out of time. And I have one more question for you in terms of you spoke about the fiscal deficit numbers and how you're happy to see that kind of transparency. And the finance minister did talk about the fact that by 25-26, we can reach a fiscal deficit level of below 4.5%. And so obviously laying out that fiscal roadmap for the next few years. How feasible do you think that is? And of course, this would even then come with its own set of challenges.
See, she didn't lay out any roadmap. He just gave a number.
The intent of getting there, I guess.
So what can I comment on? I mean, okay, 4.5, okay, 5. What I will need to do is read the Finance Commission report, which the government, I think, quite wrongly waited till the budget to release. I think that was wrong. They could have released the report for public discussion. Let me see what the honourable members of the Finance Commission, my esteemed colleagues in the Finance Commission, have said about the roadmap. Let me look at that logic, and then I'll be in a position to comment. I'm not taking a throwaway number and commenting on it.
All right, Dr. Roy, on that note, thank you so much for joining us and sharing that perspective on today's budget.